Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 332, part of the CLNS Media Network. If you have time, please subscribe to our Bruins Ringside YouTube channel. We have plenty of daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat with Evan Marinofski, Pucks with Haggs, Bear with me with Joey Capone. We have you covered every step of the way, so follow along with us over at YouTube. Hit the notification button to get up-to-the-minute video updates whenever we drop a video. And if you don't like YouTube, you don't want to see my ugly face, don't blame you. Subscribe and follow along on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your hockey podcasts. The show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by Ty Anderson, 95 The Sports Hub. Ty, how you doing?
I am wonderful. How about yourself?
I got to tell you, Ty, I'm kind of pissed. You know why?
What's that?
Because it's Memorial Day weekend, and it's friggin' Dagobah out there right now. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it
It's
at all.
not great. It's not great. Yesterday, I said, I'm going to go for a walk. And my lovely girlfriend, Doc, she said, are you sure you want to do that? And I went, yeah, I'll be fine. She goes, you will not be okay. Put on a different jacket. I got maybe 10 minutes into the walk before I went, oh, no, it's bad out there. And I came back home.
Yeah, it's dog shit. It's awful. I feel like it was maybe the first summer after COVID. It was like 21, where I feel like stuff started opening up again and felt like you're getting back to normal life. And in the summertime, it would be like Monday through Thursday, 80s, clear skies. And then it would get to like Friday through Sunday, and it's like, fuck you. It's either going to be 60 and cloudy or just rain. It feels like we're having that again. It's not great.
It does feel like that. And you know what's funny, Connor? This is my time hop is reminding me of this. 4 years ago, around this time, we were covering the end of Bruins Caps round 1. Around 4 years ago this time. And I was like, oh, wow, that season went so late. I kind of forget how late that season really did go. That I believe May 28th or 29th was like game 1 against the Islanders or something like that. It was something wild like that. But yeah, I'm getting all those in my time hop. And I remember the weather being miserable, and we all had to get vaccines, and we all had to like quarantine if we were around somebody. What a fever dream those 2 years, the COVID year and the year after COVID. Like, to your point, you're like, yeah, remember that? And I'm like, no, because I don't remember anything from that because it doesn't feel real.
It's just a bizarre season. Also, just shows you like again, not to be like going down. I feel like I'm Bill Simmons talking about the Celtics, which, like, I love Bill Simmons, but he very much gets into like what could have been with the team. Like, if like the Celtics don't win another title with Tatum, it's gonna be like they had 2 championships right in front of them, and then he blew his Achilles out. It's like it is unfortunate that you look at the Bruins. They lose 19, right, and then like they were hell bent the next year, and then COVID happens, throws all the momentum off, and again, it's playoffs. You never know what could happen. But it felt like that team had so many guys back from that previous year that they were hell-bent on a revenge tour. That was a really, really fun team. And then they're just all out of whack. And then even the year after that, where you still kind of have, guys like Krejci in place. Team wasn't maybe as perfect, right? But still had the personnel to go on another run if possible. And it just... everything was kind of disjointed that year as well. So you kind of have 2, years before you kind of have the last hurrah, I guess, in 22-23, where kind of thrown all out of whack. And you have the Lightning win those 2 years, and with their cap shenanigans and what have you. Again, not to make excuses, but it is unfortunate when you do look back on how that kind of great run the Bruins did end, or had 2 years that kind of get thrown into the shuffle, right?
I mean, it's crazy, right? Like, you look at that 2020, like they were looking good, right? And the Lightning were the eventual cup winners. But if you go back to May, before everything shut down, like, they were showing signs of falling apart. They were not healthy. It looked like the grind was kind of wearing on some of their best players. Like, it is funny how, that does change the course of history. Doesn't, like, to your point, doesn't make it an excuse. Doesn't mean that the Bruins should have been a dynasty, but no, like that was your final hurrah with Torey Krug and Zdeno Chara. Like, people kind of forget that. That was the last year of those two guys being on your left side. And, they were still effective at that point. Now, were they as effective as they were in 2018 or 2019? Like, no. But still, you think about what maybe could have been if things don't shut down for what was it, 5 months basically? Like it's a big time to kind of sit at home and do nothing, and it hurt them. And so, yes, another what could have been. We are the Bill Simmons of the Bruins. Apparently now we're going to be waxing poetic about like Erie Welsh, whatever the Bruins version of Erie Welsh is in like 15 years. That Andre Kasha, man, he had it. I'm telling you.
Listen, man, I was like throwing out Andre Kasha like a month and a half before the Bruins traded for him, so I felt like a genius when they got him. Like, this guy's gonna be 25 goal scorer, and then he could not take a hit, unfortunately.
No, is he still like elite over in the Czech?
I think he is, right? Or he's going to be a guy that in like the Olympics, which I can't wait for that to start in February. He's going to have like a hat trick for the Czech team. That's going to be a fun ass Czech team to watch. Actually, like I'm actually just excited to see all these other teams that weren't in Four Nations get a chance to like probably deliver an upset against one of the big four, right? Like I am looking forward to see just international hockey back on a stage like that, especially some of these teams, Germany, Czechia. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be. Yeah. Andre Kasha, by the way, 15 goals and 41 points in 44 games in the Czech league this past year. So not as great as last year where he was 54 points in 48 games, but still pretty good. He
enjoys that the large ice out there in Europe. It's probably helped him out quite a bit too. So we got plenty to talk about in this episode, Ty, between Don Sweeney's new contract, looking at the Bruins coaching search, which is never ending apparently, but also to go down memory lane, looking at what could have been news from a few weeks ago. Torey Krug's career most likely over. Had that pretty invasive ankle surgery, I believe, to fix what's been bothering him for years now. Pretty much at this point, it's more of a making sure it's stopping arthritic conditions, life after hockey, all those kinds of things. So a tough call, but obviously one that in the long run is good for him. And if this is the end for Torey Krug, quite the legacy a guy leaves behind, both in hockey and for the Bruins. Someone who it feels like, you always had some of the detractors, I guess, at times for, his defensive game, if you want to call it. But I feel like he was a guy that, especially now, how much he missed the value of a guy that is so good at running the power play, but also stepped up in big moments. Like, I always feel like in 2018-19 on that playoff run, especially, him and Kahlo together were nails. Like, he's a guy that always seemed to step up. He had like the tying goal in game 7 and 18 against Toronto. Just, you do miss some of these guys that it does feel like he always elevated his game and when the lights kind of shone the brightest. And again, just an unbelievable career he kind of built for himself, especially as an undrafted guy out of Michigan State.
Oh, yeah. I mean, great career. Arguably the best career out of any undrafted college free agent signing, you could argue. Actually, as of right now, he is the best American player in Bruins history, which I think a lot of people kind of forget. And the likelihood is that that's going to change at a certain point, given who they continue to draft, and they have Charlie McAvoy, obviously. But as of right now, like, he is the greatest player, greatest American-born player in the history of America's oldest NHL franchise. Like, that's cool, man. Like, that's a cool thing to hang your hat on if you're Torey Krug. And yeah, people really sleep on that 2017-18 season. He was phenomenal. He was so good that year.
Cheat code.
Just
cheat
in
code
his
on the power
bag.
play.
In his bag all year long that season. I believe he was the first Bruins defenseman. I don't know if this has changed since then, but he had the most points that season by any Bruins defenseman not named Ray Bourque since like 1996 or something like that. Like, he had the most points since Ray Bourque did in 1995, 96, something like that. Like, just a really great season, right? And it was one of those things where people always kind of looked at his size or this or that, and they used it against him. But, like, man, if you were doing that for his run here, you missed out on a hell of a player, right? You missed out on a hell of an offensive weapon, and that's a real bummer if you let that kind of crap dictate how you felt about that player, because he was a really good player for this team.
Yeah, and even like you look at that 18-19 run to beyond like how I think consistent him and Kahlo were, and just feel like they really hit their stride that year. I remember, game 6 against Toronto in the first round, were clinching game for Toronto in their own building, and he was unreal in that game. He had like that power play goal, like almost down by like the half wall, right at the end of a power play. He was a beast in that game. And then he had 4 points in game 3 against the Blues, where I think the Bruins went 4 for 4 in the power play off of 4 shots.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, like it's you almost take it for granted now of just how long has it been since the Bruins have had like a just de facto power play quarterback? Because we've had McAvoy, we've had Lindholm, who I still think when he's healthy is your best option there, but it's almost like you take for granted, especially in hockey, just what a luxury stability is. And it's like same thing with like Rask, where it's like every year, even if you're up and down on Rask, you know you're going to get like a top 10 goalie. And it's like you felt you maybe had that with Swayman, and I still, again, think he can be that kind of guy, but you have question marks going into this offseason now of like, what are you expecting? Who's going to be the power play quarterback? Like for, 5, 6, 7 years, you just had Krug there knowing like, all right, power play is probably going to be top 10, knowing that he's going to be running the show up top.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and it's kind of like when you watch other teams right now, like like when you watched Montreal make their push right to get in the playoffs, you were watching Lane Hudson do his thing on the back end. He had, I think, the 5th or 6th most power play points among defensemen this past year. Like, so he was a pretty good weapon there. Mo Seider in Detroit, another guy who does a lot of damage on the power play. Right now, this postseason, you saw it in round 1. They didn't advance, but Cam Fowler on the back end was doing a great job for St. Louis, which arguably would be Torey Krug's role if he were healthy. Like, he'd be that guy for St. Louis still. So, the comfort of having that do it all, or not do it all, but that power play quarterback back there where you just know you're going to get great looks from that spot constantly. It's such an underrated weapon, right? Like, and Torey Krug was never Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes or like those kind of guys that do that and do it all. Like, he was more on the lines of a Lane Hudson type, but like, hey, that was cool. Like, that was fun. I really think that you missed, like, to your point, cheat code, right? Like, you're struggling while your power play is going. A team like the Bruins right now, like when the 5-on-5's not going, the power play's not going, boy, it's hard to win games.
Yeah, not great. So if this is it for Torey Krug on the ice, great career, great dude. All the best to him and whatever's next. I'm sure he'll be involved in hockey in some capacity. Looking now at current events, I guess the biggest story of the week for the Bruins, Don Sweeney got a new contract extension. Bruins fans are thrilled. They're hooting and hollering in the streets. I don't know if you've had that in Alston. There are people just doing somersaults down the block in Southie.
We're always doing overjoyed. That here.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've talked on both of our podcasts about just the overall reaction. Not really surprised that he got this contract extension, but for Bruins fans who are now skeptical of Don Sweeney and what he can do, what do you think the Bruins, especially their top brass, need to see from him in the next couple of months to the next year to validate that, he's going to be sticking around for, beyond this current 2-year extension?
Yeah, I think, if you were one of these fans that was surprised by this, like, are you paying attention? Like, I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong for thinking he should be gone or whatever, but you never got the whiff that he was on the hot seat. You never got the whiff that they were going to make a change there. And I think especially like, if you hate 2015 so much, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm not saying you should love it, but if you hate it so much, you really want to fire the GM a month before the biggest draft pick they've had in like, almost 20 years. Like, isn't that just doing the same thing you just did that you hate about the current guy? So his job was never in jeopardy, right? And so this extension was an inevitability, I think, to a certain degree. Now, if you want to oversimplify it, which I have done in print, on the radio, on a podcast, they believe in him half as much as they did in 2022. 2022, he gets a 4-year deal. This time he gets a 2-year deal. So this might not be accurate. I understand that, but they believe in him half as much now as they did back then. So it does say to those people that want him gone, it's like, okay, well, he's on notice now. Like, I think he is on notice. Now, to what degree? On a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 4, maybe a 5. But like, I do think like this is going to be an interesting little run here. And if the Bruins want to be the Capitals and they want to fancy themselves as a team that can do a rebuild on the fly, 3 years is what he has left now, including next year and the next 2. That's more than enough time, I think, for a retool on the fly, which is what they want to do. That's more than enough time, in my opinion, to get that done for the Boston Bruins and Don Sweeney.
Yeah, and I also feel like Bruins fans are like, also despondent over the fact that, like, well, like, regardless of what happens, he's here for 3 years. I'm like, if the Bruins are also picking top 5 or in the realm of that again this upcoming year, is Don Sweeney going to be here? If, like, the moves they make don't move the needle and it also sacrifices their cap space, if whoever they draft number 7 overall is all of a sudden banged up, or if Jake O'Brien has 61 points this year in the O, and it's just a step back, and Dean Letourneau is not doing anything, and the second round picks you get aren't moving the needle or aren't showing progress, wouldn't like the Bruins also like take a hard look at where exactly this plan is? If you're giving him a little bit of a leash, but not necessarily a long rope here with this contract, if you're not seeing steps forward, right? And I'm not saying that like Don Sweeney needs to make it in the playoffs, but if all of a sudden Fraser Minton or some younger player up on the roster pops this year and you're seeing progress there, if Mason Lohr, I feel like he's taking steps forward. If you take Jake O'Brien and, you know, he's not going to be ready this upcoming year, but he's down in the O for another season. He's got 116 points, right? And you're like, oh, this kid's going to be good. Like, let's see if he can make a push in camp next year. I feel like that's enough to be like, all right, we've given you this kind of window here, Don, to put your plan in order. And it seems like things are moving in the right direction. So we'll keep on keeping tabs on where you are, where this plan is. And I feel like that's all you got to see from Sweeney this year. Like, I don't think there's like a mandate. I think the Bruins want to make the playoffs. I think they believe they can. But also it feels like if things are moving in the right direction, almost kind of like what the Capitals were last year, right? Where they did make the playoffs, but even if they didn't, you feel like they were in the right direction. Like they had Ryan Leonard, who was already standing out at BC. We had younger players that were adjusting well to Carberry and, his coaching staff. I feel like if you just have those reasonable expectations for a team that is retooling, but has a boatload of draft picks, some younger players, some star talent already in place, then that's enough, right? And it does feel like that 3-year extension just shows that, all right, as you said, we're not giving you the full vote of confidence, but if we've empowered you to trade all these guys to the deadline, guys with term, impactful players, it means that he has a plan, at least right now. And I think the Bruins top brass is like, all right, let's see what you can do. And I think that's kind of just what the expectation should be from ownership and what Bruins fans should be looking at as to how they're envisioning what Sweeney can do. He's got a 3-year window here, but if you don't see the gains even by next year, the confidence starts cracking a little bit.
Yeah, and I think your point of like the prospect and watching that prospect is so underrated, right? Like, because yeah, you're not going to know if they hit a home run, 5 months into the draft, but you're gonna have signs. Like you're gonna be able to look at a player and be like, okay, he's got 70 points in 50 games in the O. Like, that's good. That's what you want to see. Like, when's the last time the Bruins had a prospect like that? It's probably Charlie McAvoy at BU, where you watched him and you saw it and you saw the numbers and you're like, all right, here we go. Maybe Matty Poitras, in the O, that final year he had like 70 something assists. Like, so maybe that's a guy you look at, but even that's a second round pick, right? Like, when's the last time you had a legit top prospect that you hitched your wagon to and you watched them and you said, okay, like they look like they are top of their class. They look like they are a legit top 10 player in their respective league. That's what you want to see, right? And if you can get that, you feel better about it. Now, it's not a guarantee he's going to be a successful NHL player, as we all know, but it makes you feel better about it, right? Like I think the last time that I was legitimately excited about a Bruins prospect, like a high-end prospect, was the 2022 postseason in the WHL when Fabian Lysell had like 21 points in 12 games or whatever it was. You're like, all right, here you go. Like, this is something. All right. Like, that's the last time that you felt that kind of excitement, like for a prospect. And so you didn't get it last year with Dean Letourneau at BC with 3 assists in 40 games, whatever it was. Like, so you got to see that now. You got to hope whoever they take the 7th overall pick is a hit. And if they are, again, you just feel better. You feel better about your prospect pipeline. It's not all totally fixed, but again, you just feel a little bit better going to bed every night going, okay, they got this guy on the way. He's coming. He's coming.
Yeah, it's like the different barometers you have. And the final one, obviously, is how they handle the NHL. But to your point, right? Like, the Bruins do not have the most stacked pipeline, but how much different would just the optics of it be if Dean Letourneau, who's already viewed as a project, right, was going to need a couple years anyway. But let's say he had 16 points as a bottom 6 guy on BC. And you're like, wow, okay, like you're seeing the skill, the size, and he's poised for taking another step forward. I mean, like, how much would it change this year if all of a sudden it all clicks and all of a sudden he's a 20-point guy? And you're like, wow, we have Jacob Bryant and this guy who might be something? Like, instead of being like, is this guy just like a bust or just can't put it all together, right? And it's the same thing with what I said with like the Capitals, where they were in the right direction a year ago, but also if you're looking to the future and you're seeing Ryan Leonard rip shit up his freshman year at BC, or you look at the Capitals now where it's like, man, I really like what our D-core is right now with like Chychrun and Faravardi and Sandin and all these guys. Holy shit, are you seeing what Cole Hudson's doing down at BU? And we got that guy coming in a couple of years, right? It's like the same thing, which, when you have these guys that, again, you have to see how it translates from college or junior to the pros. We know that. But you can see glimpses, right? Like if you told me like before I watched a clip of Lane Hudson that a guy that size was going to be a dynamic player, I'd be like, oh, we'll see how he is. And then you watch like 2 or 3 games at BU, you're like, oh, this guy, maybe he's going to be a third pairing sheltered guy, but he's going to make an impact. And clearly he's well beyond that. And it's like when these guys can pop, it gives you at the very least optimism. Like the Bruins just need tangible optimism in their youth, in their core of younger players right now. And I think that has to be the key. You're not expecting, whether it's O'Brien, Brady Martin, whoever falls to them at number 7, that they're going to make the team. That'd be great if they did, but that's not realistic.
Right.
But if they're putting up 90 plus points and it feels like they're ready to make a legitimate run the previous year, then you're feeling good about what you are, what you have moving forward. And I think that has to be the expectation and what needs to happen for the Bruins. It can't be another year of, we can't do this in January or February once the season's midway and be like, well, like O'Brien, like, we always said he was going to be a project. So maybe another you can't have that. You can't be moving the goalposts and trying to set, be patient with some of these guys when it's a player you need to hit on. I think that has to be what the expectation is.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to get out of the window here of, and this is not a knock on those players. I hope they have a tremendous long pro careers for the team. But when we're sitting here getting excited about what Chris Pelosi is doing in the USHL a year ago, and it's kind of a paints you the picture of kind of a grim outlook, right? And so you just want to get, like, to your point, you want to feel like how the Capitals feel when they look at Ryan Leonard and they go, all right, how are we going to fit this Hobie Baker finalist into our lineup? Like, that's a great problem to have. It's a great feeling to have as a franchise when you know that is coming or that is happening. And again, the Bruins have not had that since probably Charlie McAvoy in 2017. And when he broke in, it was out of necessity, really. But, like, you haven't had that kind of guy where it's like, hey, make way, this guy's coming through. For the Bruins, it's been more about, okay, well, how can we fit this guy in? Like, no, you want someone knocking at the doors of an already good roster, right? And so if you can get that and you get some guys that are popping, you just feel better about your franchise. And I think that's the biggest task in front of the Boston Bruins right now with this Don Sweeney extension. You got to get your fan base excited about your product and excited about the future of your product, because that right now is taking a hit. And I know the Bruins want they want to provide their opinions about 2015, but it goes beyond 2015. It just does. And your fans right now feel disconnected. They feel like they don't have enough to be excited about. And so you got to restock that. And if you're not going to make the right picks, well, then parlay those picks into something that can help you now, right? And so that is the biggest challenge here for Don Sweeney. It's not about like making the playoffs. No, it's about reinvigorating your fan base, right? And reinvigorating them about the future of your franchise and making the moves to really maximize the window. Whether that's now or 2 years from now, and I think that's what, the 2025 deadline was impressive in the sense that it required self-reflection from Don Sweeney that we hadn't previously seen. But now he's got to realize the game is changing and the Bruins got to change with it, and they got to nail these picks. And if you're not going to nail the picks, all right, make them something greater than a second round pick. Do something there. And so I do think that I wrote this on the sportshub.com. He's a big, he's a big guy in terms of all right, like I'm a veteran GM, right? Like I know what I got to do. Okay, well then go out and be a veteran GM. Go out and submit an offer sheet like we talked about last week. That's what Doug Armstrong did, right? Look at 2 out of the 3 guys that are the finalists for the GM of the Year award in the NHL. It's Kevin Cheveldayoff and Jim Nill. 2 of the 4 guys that have been on the job longer than 2 of the 3 guys that have been on the job longer than Don Sweeney. The other one is Doug Armstrong. You got to start making moves like those guys.
Cold-blooded.
Be aggressive. Yeah, stop being everyone's friend. Don't get ripped off. Have it your way. Get what you want to do. Like get what
BK.
you want to get. Yes, exactly. I always thought it said, yeah, bro, at the end, not your way. I'm an idiot. But anyways.
Don Sweeney needs the Burger King crown. He needs to do that, send out 15 offer sheets. He's like, I want Evangelista. I want Cooley. I want everyone. Give me names.
Do they still give out the Burger King crowns ever since that guy went on the airplane and did that thing? Do they still give those out?
You have to ask. It's like a secret menu at In-N-Out Burger. You have to like ask discreetly, and they'll be like, sit at that table, and we'll do like a little paper airplane, and it's inside. And put it on like that. But you have to take it off. You can't walk out of the building with it on. I just think that like you got to be more aggressive, right? What's the point of a veteran GM if he's not GMing like a veteran GM? And I know I'm all over the place right now. I just like, but that's what's in front of him right now. There's no point in having a 10-year veteran executive if he's not going to manage like it. So be aggressive, be cutthroat. No one's doing you any favors. You know, the whole league did the Rangers a favor by taking on Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba, but you got to attach a second. Getting a return for it, yeah.
Right, but you got to attach a second to get rid of John Moore, who never played again, by the way. You could put him on LTIR for the whole rest of his career. And you got to attach a first David Backes.
We'll take Corpusalo. We'll take a little bit. You know, you can hold on to a little bit of the money, but not too much. Like we'll take on most of that contract. Thank you. We're going to give you a Vezina winner though. But
yeah, so annoying. But that's the drafting and the ruthlessness. Those are the 2 things that I think I really want to see improve for Don Sweeney here. If those things improve, the Bruins will be a better team, and Bruins fans will feel a little bit better about their executive running the show right now.
Yeah, if you got some offer sheets all of a sudden in the way, or you've got a pretty bold trade or finding ways to unearth value, and you have just a tangible prospect that pops, it changes the whole complexion of where this team is. And even like case in point, I think for Bruins fans who are so starved for optimism, right? It's like, look at like Will Zellers. No one had any clue who Will Zellers was. And they look at his numbers, and I think we've talked about it. A lot of people have, people in the USHL, of just the season he's had. And who knows if he's an NHL guy, but if you're a Bruins fan and you're so desperate for a homegrown talent and you look at the numbers he's putting up, be like, could this guy be a 25 goal scorer, middle 6 guy? I don't know, but shit, it looks good right now. It gives me something to look forward to in 2027, 28 if this guy takes another step forward. And if he has a 15 goal freshman year at UND, then Bruins fans are excited. They feel like they got someone. When was the last time they've had multiple guys where you're like, oh, I could see that guy being on this team in a couple years? How long has it been since people have done like, you know, the old cap friendly depth chart where it's like, all right, I'm going to leave that right D spot open because Carter Amico is looking pretty good, or I'm going to leave that third line left wing spot because I really like what Zell is going to be in a couple of years. You haven't even had like the daydream scenarios there just because the pipeline's been so barren. So you just need to bring in talent that they're not succeeding right away, but they're giving you the breadcrumbs. They're giving you the appetizers to, if you're a Bruins fan that's just waiting for, I think Bruins fans want to get back to the high of like what the 17-18 season opener was. Remember how pumped the Garden was when you had McAvoy and DeBrusk and Heinen and Bjork? And again, none of those guys panned out. But at the time, especially, it felt like he had like all of a sudden this new cast that was going to help out the Bergerons, the Krejcis, the Marchands right away. And you're like, this is a new chapter opening up. And it kind of was, right? Like it was, again, still built on that foundation of the old guard per se, but you can't have a sustainable contention window with just the same 3 or 4 guys the entire way. If all of a sudden David Pastrnak and McAvoy are leading the way the next 5 years, but you've got Jake O'Brien and I'm just rattling off guys, Carter Amico and Will Zellers and whoever it may be, Will Cooley, and that's part of your next wave, now you're cooking. Now you got this new cast, this new chapter, and I think that's going to be what Don Sweeney has to do, is set that foundation for greater returns in 2027, 28. And if those guys are all of a sudden making an impact by then, he's probably getting another contract. That's the way it is.
I think to your point, and I had to rack my brain real quick to think about this. I think the last time I felt that kind of excitement that you're talking about was probably spring 2017. You had Brandon Carlo on the roster as like a first year pro, was looking pretty good. And then you had you had Ryan Donato at Harvard. He had like a 40-point season thereabouts. Then you had Anders Bjork looking
Ripping
great
it up
for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame made the Frozen Four that year.
Yeah.
You also had JFK and McAvoy at BU. So you were kind of looking at some guys going, okay, you got some guys coming here, you know? And so I think that that was probably the last time I felt that, right? And not all those guys panned out, obviously. But that was the last time that I think I felt legitimately good about the pipeline, so to speak, you know, like, and even then, like, I didn't even mention guys like DeBrusque and Zaboral and Senyshyn, who at that time were still first round picks, still in their respective leagues, Canadian juniors. But like, you know, like that was probably the last time that I was like, you might have some young talent coming up here, right? It wasn't, you know, top of the charts pipeline, but it was enough to get you kind of feeling good about it, right? Like you had 5 or 6 guys that you thought realistically could make an NHL impact on your roster.
It's almost like, I think best case scenario for the Bruins this season. I mean, best case scenario is them winning a cup. That's not going to happen. But like, barring them just completely overshooting expectations and Swayman goes back to being a Vezina candidate, what have you. If you get that same level of where I feel like 17 was, where you make the playoffs when you really weren't expected to, you have a 5-6 game series, you play some competitiveness, and that series ends during the handshake line. I remember watching that game where you see all these younger players both on the team or in the system. And right as that game ended, I'm like, I can't friggin' wait for October to see what this team is. And I feel like that is the best case scenario. And I think Bruins fans also will buy into that. If you give them a young team that is building and you're seeing guys, you're retweeting highlights from like what's going on in college hockey or juniors. If O'Brien's got a spinorama goal or a sick pass or something like that, and the guys you draft in the second round look good, and you make the playoffs and you come up short, but you feel like, wow, this team is going to take another big step forward in 26, 27. That's what you're looking for. And Bruins fans will eat that up because Bruins fans are passionate, but also like they know their shit and they know when you feel like you've got another window opening up here. And I feel like that's what you need to be striving for this upcoming season.
Yeah, get me refreshing Robert Chalmers' Twitter account, you know,
exactly.
every day as he's posting from the USHL and the OHL and finding all these games. I have no idea how he finds them. I love that for him. But yeah, like get me excited about players like that. I mean, listen, as somebody who watches the NHL and covers the NHL every day, it's hard for me to get excited about players that are in leagues that I can't really actively watch as much as I do the NHL. And so you just want to feel good about, you know, players beyond Chris Pelosi and Beckett Hendrickson and Jonathan Morello, guys that we think can be good NHL players, Ryan Walsh, but like you want to get back to having those high end, like can't miss reason you buy a ticket to go to a game kind of players. You want to get more of those in your pipeline. Yeah,
absolutely. So we will see. It's not going to be an easy task, but that is the hand that's been dealt to Don Sweeney with his new contract. Ty, we're going to talk a little bit more about the coaching search. Before we do that, take a quick break, hear from our good friends over at Prize Picks. The basketball playoffs are here and action is heating up on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, take your pick on more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with a play-in round, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Takes Two Tickets sweepstakes. Takes Two Tickets sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. Prize Picks also has a ton of promos, including Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Choose squares from any game on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. And it's not just basketball. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, esports, and so much more. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the ice in your Prize Picks lineup. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in Prize Picks. This week, I'm looking at the board, and I'm going to cover all my bases. I've got Tyrese Halliburton for more than 30 points and making Knicks fans miserable, and Mikko Rantanen for more than 1 goal. It's really that easy. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Shout out once again to our good friends over at Prize Picks. Ty, we're still waiting for any sort of news.
Sorry, did the Riddler write that ad read for you? That was insane. I mean, listen, I'm happy. Like, that name for like that contest was insane.
I was fighting for my life there for a second.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of mental gymnastics there. I need to take a little bit of a breather. We're gonna put a little like intermission, like from the Brutalist. We're gonna do a 20 minute break here. But no, we're switching gears real quick. We're going into a really dynamic, bombastic storyline: the Bruins head coaching search, which is going at a snail's pace. We're still waiting for any sort of news. I was dreading that we were going to get the news during the Memorial Day weekend, which, like, it'd actually be great if it was on Friday when it was a monsoon outside. We had nothing else to do. It'll be like on Monday when it's going to be 70. That's when we're going to get the update. Just we're going to get like it's going to be like the coach, like a GIF of them going like,
"Yep."
It's going to be like SVU, like an intro like that, but it's going to be whoever the new coach is. There have been some nuggets of information. You've had Don Sweeney talking to Steve Conroy of the Herald, saying that they're not no longer, waiting for conversations with coaches that are in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which might mean that Misha Donskov is no longer in the running. You have Pierre LeBrun saying that they've talked to a lot of people, mentions, let's see, run through the whole list: Marco Sturm, Mitch Love, Luke Richardson, Jay Leach, Joe Sacco. Where do you kind of stand on where they are right now? And I think especially with Donskov, I want to know your take. Does it feel like they're just like no longer waiting for him? Or is that like also Don Sweeney doing his wording where it's maybe have they already talked to him? Can they talk to him like while the playoffs are going on? Or is it like a set thing like the NFL where it's like, we have this window, you can talk to him. If not, beat it. Like, you can't, don't text him, don't do anything. Don't send him a Snapchat. You can't send him anything during the playoffs.
No fruit baskets.
Nothing. No edible arrangements.
Yes. So they can. It's. I think like there's. I want to say there's like a limitation to what you can do though. Like I think like there's either like a certain number of interviews that an assistant coach can take while they're still in the playoffs, or there's like a limit to the amount of times you can talk to them, like a total, like you can have 3 meetings, 3-hour-long meetings or something like that. Like, I don't know the exact rules, but I know like there are some restrictions. This is where the NHL would greatly benefit, in my opinion, from taking a page out of the NFL's playbook where there's complete transparency. You have to interview guys. You have to disclose when you interview guys. Like, I think that would help the league. I've never understood why the NHL operates the secret society kind of way of doing things. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for their league. But nevertheless, that could be a Sweeney language thing, that he goes back and says, well, I never said that. I said we were done interviewing him, like he loves doing that.
Yes. Which is why I was like, I feel like on baseline, like I'm not saying that it's been misconstrued or anything, but I feel like that is also a Don Sweeney special of like, we already did talk to him, so we're not waiting on anyone else.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, Don.
So I mean, listen, I don't know if I was the first person to acknowledge or to bring up the Donskov possibility. We did
first
this
conductor.
I think we did it like months and months and months ago, honestly. But there is one box that is checked against him throughout this process. So maybe they are done. They have said like they would like head coaching experience in some fashion. He's never done that. He's always been an associate or an assistant or, worked in the front office. And I think there's value there, but do the Bruins say, no, we need somebody who's done the job before. Right. And so maybe that does rule him out. Out of that list that LeBrun mentioned that you rattled off, like a lot of guys we knew about, we knew about Marco Sturm. We knew about Jay Woodcroft. We've known about Joe Sacco and Jay Leach, 2 guys that are getting legit consideration in this race from all indications. One name that we've talked about, we speculated about, but now it is official that they've talked to him is Mitch Love out of Washington. And I got to tell you, that's a name that, listen, if Donskoy's not going to check the box for you, I think Mitch Love checks a lot of boxes with the Boston Bruins, personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's a guy that amongst that group, as you said, it feels like, he's a younger coach. He's 40 years old, but has the head coaching experience from his time in the AHL, was the coach of Calgary's AHL team that moved in his 2 years he was there, but both years had great records. I think won like the Pacific Division both years. He's
coach of the year, both years.
Both years, which I think has only happened 2 or 3 times in AHL's history. And a guy that also you have tangible, results at the NHL level, where he's on Spencer Carberry's staff. He's responsible for working with their defensemen. And it's just like you go through the list, whether it's Chikrin, Faravarti, Sandin, all these players. Like, if you bring in Mitch Love and he like all of a sudden like stabilizes Mason Lohrei's career, like that already is a huge win. But like, what if he also gets all these other guys, playing at a high level? If your bread and butter, if you're the Bruins, is your defensive game, and I feel like that is still the guiding principle, right? If the Bruins are going to right the ship, there's going to be a lot of stuff that has to go their way, but fixing that defense, getting them, airtight with their defensive structure and helping out Jeremy Swayman, getting him back on track, that is the baseline foundation. That's what you have to do if you're going to right the ship. And so it almost feels like if it's a defensive-minded younger coach who's been pretty innovative, like in terms of, preaching new principles, getting more offense out of his out of his defensemen, and, growing and building with what is going to be a younger team, I really like Mitch Love. He just seems like a guy that everywhere he's gone, he's had success. He's young. I've gone through some of like the mini coaching videos of him, of going through his principles, and feels like he's a guy that embraces, new ways of thinking, but also preaches in a very practical way to players too, which I think is what you have to do. It's balancing some of that, the analytics side, the innovation, with how best to communicate with players. And it feels like he's good at having that communication and that open line to his players. And I think that's going to be the biggest key. It feels like not anyone, but everyone wants the innovative coach, but it's a different challenge and a different, toolkit, I guess, for a coach to be able to translate that and make it digestible for players, right? And players don't want to hear about like, well, you're, according to I looked at your numbers, like underlying things, and you're good in this way and you're bad that way. Like, players have a lot of pride. They don't want to be like, oh, you're going to look at a bunch of fucking graph and say how I'm effective or not. They don't give a fuck about numbers like that. Like, and I get it. No one wants to have their game, what they've spent their entire life on, get diluted into a red and blue chart. No one wants that, but it's how coaches can translate that stuff, find ways to put their players in the best spots to succeed, and preach what the principles have to be to help them out. That I think is what you're looking for in a young coach these days. And it feels like he checks off all those boxes in terms of being a former player that can get that message across and really build with what you have moving forward.
Yeah, and going back to what he's done in Calgary with their AHL team, like if you look at those rosters, right, like they had Dustin Wolf, right, who has emerged as a great goaltender, a great young, exciting rookie goaltender. He was great there, right? And so if you can tap into that with Jeremy Swayman, a lot of your problems are going to go away. And Swayman, similarly a young goaltender, right, has gone through some ups and downs, and so you think that he can do that. But also, you look at those rosters that the Stockton Heat and the Calgary Wranglers had during Love's tenure there. These were younger rosters, man. Like these were rosters that had about, I would say, I have to go back and look, but like I want to say they had about 6 to 8 guys that. Maybe even 10 guys that were 22 or younger. And yeah, that is the AHL. We all agree. But it's not like he was winning with like a roster like the Chicago Wolves are always good, right? And you look at the Chicago Wolves roster, and they got a bunch of 31-year-olds and 29-year-olds that have been around forever. And it's like, okay, well, they know how to play the pro game.
Yeah, Mike Vecchione on that team? Jesus.
Yeah, you got Rocco Grimaldi still kicking around. Like you got those kind of guys. Like, yeah, that's going to help you, right? But like he was winning with a younger roster by AHL standards. A lot of 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds. One guy that he helped bring along, in my opinion, was Connor Zary, who has been a good player for Calgary. A nice middle six kind of weapon there. But also, listen, throw this out there as well. Mitch Love, former Lowell Lock Monster. Hell yeah. Long live Louis.
Yes.
Rest in peace to the king. No, but I do think, though, to your point, like that is kind of where the game is going, right? And the Bruins do not want to abandon their defensive mentality. Washington, top 10 a year ago in terms of shots against per game. You look at Chychrun, as you mentioned, Sandin, Ferravari, they bring in Matt Roy. Like that's a team that is kind of playing the way that I think you want to play defensively, right? And so I like him for that reason. I really do. And even predating the AHL run, he was good. He coached, I think it was Saskatoon in the WHL. Decent record there as well. And so success has kind of followed him around. And I think, being 40 years old, you can get in on the ground level with a guy like this. Like, this might be your John Cooper. This might be your Jared Bednar, right? Like,
might be your David Carl.
Yes. And that is, I think that's an underrated point here and through all of this, is that I think if you're the Bruins, you want to go younger because your roster is young and you want a guy that you're not looking at this like, yeah, you could look at it like Peter Laviolette. Oh, we just want 3 good years and we're going to reset it. No. You should aim higher. Look at the teams that are currently in the mix right now, or the teams that have the best models for success. You have coaches that have been there for a long time, or guys that are going to be there for a long time. Out of that top 4 right now, Brindamore's been there since 2017, 2018, thereabouts. Paul Maurice has been there since 2022, but he's not leaving. Like, they're not going to move on from him after 3 years, so he's going to be there for more than 3 years. Pete DeBoer, I can't see them moving on after this season. Like, so he's going to be there for at least 4 years, you'd think. And Knobloch, was what? He was the coach of McDavid growing up. They're not going to move on from him. So, like, you got to aim for the long-term vision. That you want a guy who's going to be here for 7 or 8 years. If he's 40 years old, I like your odds there versus hiring a 58-year-old who's been through the ringer and has been in the game for 30 years. I just like your odds more with the former than the latter.
Yeah. I also like the 40-year-old guy that, again, I don't know if he's relating to like the influx of 20-year-olds, but a guy that is young, I think probably has more patience for these younger players, and also has been around the block. Like, this is a guy that, look at his highlight tape. That guy made a career out of just beating the shit out of people in the AHL. He's a guy that feels like someone you want to play for, is intense, but also is able to kind of bridge that gap and communicate with his players. So I really like Mitch Love. And if Don Scott's out of the equation, I'd probably have him as my favorite pick. And it's not to say that means like I'm out on Sturm or anyone else, right? Because I feel like it remains to be seen where exactly they do go with that pick. But I think Love is a guy that just checks off a lot of boxes. So I think what we are hoping like the next chapter is of like really leaning into the youth, developing, bringing in guys that can supplement the likes of Pasternak, McAvoy, and have those guys buy in. I think a 40-year-old that can kind of feels like he could be that wartime general while also being that innovative kind of coach that can really kind of drag you along and elevate the cast you already have. I think he kind of checks off what you're looking for there.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. Like I've been racking my brain trying to find out any sort of connection between the Boston Bruins and Mitch Love, and the only one you get is Joe Sacco. Joe Sacco coached him in the AHL, which is and that Lock Monsters team that Love was on. Sacco was the assistant coach, and Lynn's own Tom Rowe was the head coach of that team. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find the connection like to the Bruins, but I'm okay with that. He's a good coach. He's a good coach. I almost don't want a connection to the Bruins. I just want the best damn coach available if I'm them.
Yep, absolutely. So we will see what happens. It means that like he's going to get hired by the Kraken in like a day, which would suck. I think he also has some ties out to the Everett, Washington area. Not Everett, Mass, unfortunately.
He did. He was an assistant coach with Everett, so that would be a connection there.
But also that team sucks. So.
I was gonna say that team is miserable. And now he's got a taste of East Coast life. You know, being 2 years in Washington. So I mean, listen, if you like. I had this debate with I was on with Toucher and Hardy this past week, and Fred was saying like, who cares where the job is? And like, I kind of agree with that. Like if you're going to a situation where like you have a good roster, who cares where the city is, right? Like and that's both a check in the Bruins' favor and a check against them, right? Like the Bruins are saying original six franchise, who wouldn't want to coach here? Well, we're finding out some guys didn't. Some guys didn't want to coach here.
Right.
So, but I think if you're like, let's look at the three remaining spots: Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Boston. I think of that grouping, Boston is the most attractive. That's just how I feel, though. I mean, I could be mistaken, but to your point, Seattle, like, just a weird roster complexion. Pittsburgh, you know, they're all a billion years old now, it feels like, and who knows what the hell the direction of that team is. So I feel like Boston is the best place to be. I think, and if you're Mitch Love and you're looking at your identity as a defensive-minded head coach, like, you know, I think Boston's probably where you want to go, I would imagine, out of that grouping.
Yeah. So,
like who's the top defenseman in Seattle? Vince Dunn? Like, okay, I mean, sure, go for it, I guess.
That team, and also feels like the Bruins also, I don't know if this is me just talking about what I think the best path is, but I also feel like there's even more patience from like the ownership of like, again, if you're able to just right the ship and develop guys and we're on the right track, people are going to be happy. Whereas like, I don't know what the pressure is in Seattle, frankly, but it's like, are we going to do anything? Like, are we making the playoffs, or what the fuck are we doing? Because we've just been treading water for 2+ years now. And as for Pittsburgh, it's like, we got to make the most of this window. I know like the roster's cooked, but like, this is what we're doing. So it's almost like, it feels like if you're Mitch Love and you're also trying to build with a younger team, like if you just stick to your principles and you have this team going in the right direction, ownership's going to be happy. I think fans will buy into that if you're a young coach that is really helping along a new cast of characters. Whereas Pittsburgh, it's almost like you're in win now mode. In Seattle, I mean, who the hell knows? Like, feels like they are trying to get over the hump, but what do you got out there?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, if you had let's do it this way. If you had to pick your big three right now for who you'd want to get the job, who would they be?
I would go Love, Sturm. Man, I guess like for me, like I would probably say like the three I would put as the favorites right now are Love, Sturm, and Leach.
Same. That would be the three that I would go. What do those three guys all have in common? They're younger. They're younger. They're younger coaches. Like this is where the game is going. And I think, again, if you want to replicate the Capitals model, Spencer Carberry was young head coach. Didn't have a lot of experience to his name in terms of NHL, know-how. I think he was with Toronto for what, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly, but like, you gotta take that chance, man. Like I'm cool with taking that chance if you believe in that guy. Like I would take that over a guy we haven't talked about, which is Luke Richardson. Luke Richardson's resume is very extensive. He's been involved in the NHL since 1986, essentially. He's playing, or 87. He was playing in 87. He retired after making 2 appearances during the 2008-2009 season. By 2009-2010, he was already an assistant coach. And he's been involved in hockey since. So he's been in the pro game for longer than I've been alive, longer than you've been alive. And so there's value there, yeah, but I that's a great assistant to have. Is that a great head coach to have? I don't know. I'm kind of ready for a new vision, a new guy that can relate to younger players. And to your point you made earlier, give those young players a chance, because the Bruins have to do that. The Bruins are not going to be a team that is going to be as good as they can be if they are not giving younger players rope to either pass or fail. If you give a player 3 games and you get nothing out of them, you send them back to the minors, nobody's winning. Nobody's winning when you do that. You need a guy who can help these young players grow and develop. And I think naturally a younger coach who has experience in juniors in the AHL can do that better than a guy who's been involved in the NHL for 35 years.
Yep. No, I agree wholeheartedly. So we'll see what happens there. Ty, we're going to wrap this up in a minute or so, but quick little segue. We have plenty of time to look at free agency stuff like that, but looking at the state of the playoffs right now, 1, how miserable are you watching Panthers Hurricanes? And 2, does this series also change, or maybe this playoff run, make you feel like where Marchand was with his time with the Bruins? wasn't wasted. Like I'm trying to find the right way to put this, but doesn't it feel like this shows you like how unfortunate it was the Bruins didn't have like a better supporting cast or more talent rising to the top, that Marchand pretty much had to be the guy, had to be your top line left wing. Whereas I feel like if at this point of his career, if he can be like your middle six line driving pain in the ass, it's where like he should be at this point of his career. It's not saying he can't still be a star player, and it's not saying that he wasn't a good captain. I'm not saying any of that. But for where you're getting the best of him right now, I think you're seeing it every single game with the Panthers. Like he's just been a menace in that role with Florida.
Yeah, I mean, think about how different, it like anything. I am the first person to tell people to get over 2015 because we're not changing anything. Nothing new is developing. Imagine how different Marchand's role could be on this team if the Bruins had a Kyle Connor or even a Travis Konechny. Think about how it would be a natural move for Marchand to be your third best winger or your fourth best winger and just really sort of be who he is, be the player that Bruins fans fell in love with 15 years ago, where he is able to be, a bit of a shithead, a bit of a shit stirrer, but like it's effective, right? And I just feel like he doesn't have a lot of pressure on him in Florida. That whole team, they all play so free and they all play so loose. And I think so much of that comes back to having a Barkov and a Reinhart at the top of your roster, but it's like everyone just knows, we just got to play our game. We're going to be fine. Like, and Marchand has said that. He said that when he was captain of the Bruins. But his game got heavier and heavier, right? Like he was the captain. He was power play 1. He was PK 1. He was, top line. He was shutdown. He did everything. He was their second best winger, second best player behind David Pastrnak, and so, yeah, like it does speak to if you had one more hit along the way, drafting wise, you're probably getting that version of Marchand on the Bruins. Not to say, to your point, wasn't a bad captain, wasn't a bad player, but just a lot on his plate at 37, 38 years old. Like, it's a lot, man. It's a lot on your plate. And so I think you're seeing a Marchand that just looks more free right now. He just looks more comfortable with his role, knowing that I just got to go in the forecheck and win my battles and get to the front of the net, and I'm going to be golden.
Yeah,
like that helps, man.
Yeah, it's almost like, to your point, just like the weight of it. And it's if you're Brad Marchand and you're 37, and every offseason you're having like 2 or 3 surgeries, and everyone loses the battle with Father Time. We know that. But it's like also every day when you're with the Bruins, you have to go out on the ice being like, hey, I got to be our top line player. I have to carry our team if we're going to have even a shot at making the playoffs and be the captain and take on that responsibility that's been passed from the guys I looked up to and Chara and Bergeron. Like, as much as you feel like, guys can tune that out, that weighs on you. Whereas now in Florida, he goes on the ice and you know what he has to say? I just got to be Brad Marchand. And I know how fucking good I can be when I'm that kind of player. It almost feels like you're seeing, again, I try to find the right way to word it because you have nothing for respect for what he's done over his last couple of years of embracing that leadership role and all that stuff. But like the most fun I think I've ever covered a pro athlete, I think, is like when I first started covering the team, like 17 through 2020 Marchand of just menace, like free will, free talking Marchand is like the best. And I think you're seeing that same thing. His game 7 against Florida, both the lead up to it, the play on the ice afterwards in like the press conferences was like a magnum opus of like what Marchand is at his best. And I think in Florida, in that spot, you're seeing him thrive of being that kind of player again. And it's not to say that he, willingly got rid of it here in Boston, but like the responsibilities are different when you have to be the guy at that age and also be the captain. And it's if the Bruins, who knows, like maybe he'd still be captain even if they had other guys step up. When you have other guys that can take that burden off of you, if you had players step through the system and he was like your third line player like he is now, he would be such a friggin' menace in that spot of just being the guy that's hounding pucks, exploiting easier matchups, not going up against the Barkovs or anything else like he was here, or Matthews, what have you. It just shows you again just how unfortunate it is that it kind of ended in this way where, it wasn't like his game tailed off, but the Bruins weren't also, I think, getting the best kind of Marchand based on just how much responsibility they put on his shoulders down the stretch because they really had no one else to turn to.
Yeah, and I think, beyond Marchand too, like to your other point, like about the playoffs in this series, like this series is a great example of why we need to go back to 1-8.
Please,
it
Jesus.
just sucks. This sucks. Like this is not good for the league. And I swear to God, I haven't talked to a single player on or off the record who likes this format. They don't like it. People don't like it. If you wanted to, okay, the Atlantic winner gets 1, and the Metro winner gets 2, depending on who has the most points. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Whatever. Make it so it matters to win your division. That said, 3 through 8 points. What are we doing here? Why are we not doing that? I want to go over this real quick. So the brackets this year, right? The Atlantic bracket, if we go by points, was the 2 versus the 6 and the 3 versus the 5. So you were guaranteeing that you were going to be down at least half of your top 5 teams through 2 rounds. You were guaranteeing that. That's not great. That's not great for the product, right? But the Metro bracket, which is produced Carolina this year, was the 1 versus 8 and the 4 versus the 7. So unless the Capitals win, you're getting a weakened team. You're getting a team and this keeps on happening. This happens every year where you get a matchup that's like the 3 versus the 5 or the 2 versus the 5 in the first round, and then by the third round you have a completely slanted bracket. It sucks. It's not fun. It's not good. You are devaluing your 82 game season by sticking with this garbage ass format that nobody likes. Nobody likes this format except for Gary Bettman. He's the only guy that I've ever heard say, "Oh, this format's great." It's not. It sucks. It's not good. It's leading to watered down product. The NFL doesn't do it like this. The NFL, you get the 1 versus 2 in the conference final, and everyone is in their damn chairs ready to go. The NHL, the ratings are dipping once again. And it's not just the big markets being out. It's the format blows, and it's hard to find the games, and it's becoming repetitive now. This is the third time in 5 years that Carolina has emerged out of that bracket
and getting its ass kicked.
Yeah, it's not entertaining. It's not good to have the repetition that you keep getting. It's not like a TV show. I don't want reruns. I want fresh matchups. The best way to get that is 1 through 8. I don't know why they didn't see this when they made this change all these years ago. It's gotten repetitive. It's time for something different. And what's most annoying, Connor, is they're not going to fix it by going back to 1 versus 8. They're going to make a damn play-in tournament. It's going to be stupid. It's going to be stupid as hell.
And in this sport too, it's going to be some jabroni team that shouldn't have any reason to be in there. We'll win, and then we'll sneak in and then get their ass beat. Right?
Yes.
It's not great. Again, I can't see why you look at just the way it's been set up. Where how much better would the Eastern Conference Finals be if it was Florida and Toronto?
It'd be so much better.
Or
so much better.
I feel like in the first round, Gary Bettman would probably we're getting excited. You got Colorado and Dallas in the first round. I'd rather them be later in the round because I feel like regardless of what the matchups are, if you have all 8 series going on at once in the first round and it's hockey on every single night and it's great, it's just by hockey's nature that at least 2 of those series is going to be entertaining regardless. There's going to be an upset. There's going to be something just. You let hockey play out, and it will supply the entertainment. You don't have to manufacture it by putting powerhouses against each other in the first round, because all it does is then dilute the product later on when the stakes should be higher. What are we doing? I think that's the issue. It's when you get to this point, it's either a formality, a lopsided matchup, and there's just nothing. We're just now going with the assumption that Florida's back in it because they've wholly kicked Carolina's ass so far. To these games. It's not even remotely competitive. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and listen, we might get a really competitive series with Edmonton and Dallas. And people will say, well, that offsets it. But no, I'd
rather have 2 series that are competitive.
Right. And to your point, in the first round, if there's a blowout, that's okay because you have 3 other games you can flip to and watch a great game. This time of year, you want the best on best, right? And if you're not going to get that, there's nothing else to watch. So guess what? I'm going to turn off your product. I'm going to go do something else with my time. not here in Boston, but the weather's nice out now, so I'll go outside and go do something. If I'm not going to watch your crappy ass blowout games because of this ridiculous playoff format that you've concocted for some reason. So I think this playoff and really the repetition you've seen the last few years, I think that's a huge reason to move away from it. We'll see if they do. I feel like their solution is going to be a play-in tournament because everyone else is doing that. But that's
just
not
do whatever the NBA is doing. Do whatever the NBA is doing. That's what they
always do. That's what they always do. But it's they got to change it because it is. I think it's finally hurting the product. I mean, the ratings are kind of confirming that. That it is tough. If the big markets aren't in it and there's repetitive matchups, your fans are going to tune out. I am the biggest hockey fan I can ever be. I watch every game. I will get home from being out and my girlfriend will go to bed and I'm like, I'm going to put on the Utah game. Like I'm a lunatic. And even I'm kind of like, I'm sick of this matchup. I'm bored. I want something else. Like that's not good for your league. You do not want viewer or, the passion, so to speak, to have any sort of fatigue. It's just, that's not good for the sport.
Yep, 100%, wholeheartedly agree. I'm sure the NHL will do nothing as we all expect. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985thesportshub.com. Also on the air, 985 The Sports Hub. You can also hear my podcast I do with my friend Matt Dolliff, The Sports Hub Underground, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, just search my name on the internet and you'll find all my social media platforms. That's where I am. Also, you can find me probably walking around Alston looking for a nice bite to eat. So that's where you can find me. How about yourself?
Yes, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We'll have you covered every step of this Bruins offseason, looking at the head coaching search, free agency, trades, offer sheets, all that stuff. It's going to start ramping up here, we hope, pretty soon. So please follow all my stuff over there. You can also find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Conor Ryan _93. Again, thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe to our Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel. Again, if you want to get daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat with Evan Marinofski, Pucks with Haggs, Bear with me with Joey Capone, we have you covered there. So please hit that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button. This was episode 332 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.